106.3 FM, The Source.
All right, from now on, Robin, when somebody asks me my age, I'm going to say threescore and more.
Okay.
I just like the way that sounds. Threescore and more.
Nice.
That means 60-something, right?
63.
60-something, what?
Oh, you're right. Threescore and more. That's
More.
right. 60 plus whatever.
60-something, yes.
60-something.
If it was threescore and three, which is what I am, it'd be 63.
There you go.
So I heard a joke. The joke was, you know what is the most popular wine among the 60-something people?
What's that?
No one will hire me because I'm old. Alan Weiss is on the phone. He's written a book called Threescore and More. He is a consultant, a speaker, the founder and president of Summit Consulting Group, whose clients include Merck, Hewlett-Packard, GE, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, the recipient of the National Speakers Association Council of Peers Award of Excellence. And he's a best-selling author. I just went on Amazon, and he's got some really impressive numbers. Let's see what this book is about. Threescore and More, applying the assets of maturity, Robin.
Okay.
Wisdom and experience for personal and professional success. Alan Weiss, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. See, the problem was Lincoln already used Fourscore and More, so I had to use something else.
He had Fourscore and 7. So where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Rhode Island. I'm a New Yorker originally, as you can tell by my speech pattern, but I live in Rhode Island.
But see, I've noticed this. Wait a minute. Rhode Island and Long Island have the exact same accent.
Well, not by a long shot.
No? You don't think so?
No.
I think so.
Challenge is on.
Well, okay.
That's like saying Ocala and Baton Rouge have the same accent. That's not going to work.
So how old are you?
I'm 72.
72.
Wow.
72.
So that's not. Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of using score instead of numbers, because you won't reach Fourscore for another 8 years.
Well, I'd use Roman numerals, but we don't have time. You know what I'm saying?
But the whole idea that wisdom and old age go together is not really true. I see these guys in the mugshots all the time that are my age, and they are not smart.
Well, some of them, maybe. Yeah. I don't know who you hang out with, but the problem is, I know 20-year-olds who are slothful and slow and lazy and non-creative, and I know 80-year-olds who are full of energy and wisdom.
Absolutely.
So I think one of the problems, though, and you've really pointed this out just now, is that we tend to put generations in a box and label them. There are millennials, the greatest generation, Generation X, but we're all individuals. And my point is, you can't discount people just because they're a certain age. It's the last remaining accepted bias in the United States.
But can I tell you something? And I wonder if you do this. Do you ever use it as a card? Like, I always pretend I don't know how to use the internet. I know how to use it really well.
Well, if you want, you could do this too. You could break your leg and claim you're disabled, and that would help too. Where does that end?
Oh my God!
What's absolutely wonderful about your book and about when you are speaking and everything is that you tell people don't be ashamed of the free enterprise system, that everybody has something to offer.
Well, that's right, and just because you forgot where you put your car keys doesn't mean you're senile. And the fact
right.
is, right? The fact is that older people have wisdom. Not all older people, as Larry points out, but a lot of older people have wisdom, and that's because they've been around the block a few times, not their first rodeo.
Yeah.
And consequently, my point in the book is that as you get older, don't forget to talk to younger people. Don't live in some community where everyone's the same age and they look
Thank
alike.
you. That's how I feel too. Yes.
We all have kids, and then we get older. We move into a community that doesn't allow kids. It makes no sense.
That's why I'm moving back to New York. This is becoming one of those communities. Yeah, I'm going back. You know what I'm talking about. You're 55 plus. You got a gate, and if you go past that gate, you can't live here unless you're older than 55. I don't know about if I like that or not.
There's this old saying that men don't stop playing games because they grow old. They grow old because they stop playing games, and I really believe that's true.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, yeah. So you could have written this book when you were younger, but it wouldn't have made sense, would it?
No, I don't think so. But I wrote it now because I've moved my focus to helping people improve their self-esteem, self-worth. I wrote Life Storming with Marshall Goldsmith. I wrote $1 Million Maverick. And now I've moved on to this book because I think that people have a tremendous amount to contribute. And if we disregard people over a certain age, it's like saying, well, let's disregard all women, let's disregard minorities. You lose all that talent. And there's a tremendous financial problem because when all this legislation was enacted, Social Security and so forth, it's 80 years ago, and the actuarial tables were like this. You retired at 65, you lived for 3 years, and there were 14 people working to support you. Today,
right.
You retire at 65, you have a 20-year lifespan, and there were 2 people working to support you. The numbers don't work.
Yeah,
you can't make Social Security work.
They don't work. So you're going to help us make money? Look at you. You're a handsome guy. Wait a minute. I just found your picture.
He's sharp.
No, that's George Clooney. You're on the wrong site.
What's the dog's name? You got a dog with you in this picture.
Bentley.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, it's a nice car, too, by the way.
You help people get rid of their anxiety. You help them say that they have to let go, they have to be able to forgive and move on.
That's right. And you have to resist the tendency or the movement to say you can't do certain things because of your age. Now, I don't expect, a firefighter at 75 to run into a burning building, although perhaps some do, but they can certainly be a fire marshal, a fire inspector. They can be a consultant helping companies in the building area prevent fires. There are things we can do. I mean, never mind the fact Tony Bennett's 92 singing with Lady Gaga.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Don't you love that? Who cares? I mean,
right.
Who cares how old he is?
Tullenberger lands a plane in the Hudson. Nobody's even hurt badly, and within 2 years he has to retire because he's 65. Doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
no,
I didn't know that happened to him. Is that right? That's what happened to him? Huh.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but if something goes wrong on an airplane, I don't want a 28-year-old kid up there who's just seen it in a simulator. I want a guy up there or a woman up there who's seen it, been through it, done it. I'd feel a lot better.
Yeah. So do you think aging, as far as discriminating against people who have got a few years, do you think it's worse for women than it is for men?
It is. And take a look at the media. On TV, it's much more acceptable for a man to have gray hair and wrinkles and so forth, whereas women are forced almost to do things to look younger than they are. And it's bad in the media, and it's also bad in business because people don't cut as much slack for women, and so women have it doubly hard.
That's why I'm in radio.
But have you ever heard? Oh my gosh, Robin, who was the lady that? Oh gosh, I can't remember. Anyway, we were watching the Kennedy Honors thing, and they were honoring Carole King, and was it not Roberta Flack? But anyway, one of the ladies came out. Oh my gosh, I can't remember who it was.
Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin, thank you.
Oh, yes. She blew the place away.
Yes,
she did. She's outstanding.
So my point with that is that a lot of times singers are told, hang it up. And in some cases, they're still doing pretty good. Like you just mentioned, Tony Bennett. His voice sort of falters a little bit, but she's belting. Yeah. She's still belting.
Oh, she blew all the young people away on that stage.
Yeah.
And the fact is that we have to be able to understand that people at all ages have worth. And we can't just write them off because of their age, just like we can't write someone off because of their gender. It's ridiculous.
And everybody's always learning. I mean, once the internet came out, it seemed like the young people grasped it, but the more mature people, most of them jumped right on board to get their own accounts, their own internet, their own Facebook and things, because they don't want to be left out of the loop.
That's exactly what happened. That's a great point. And so grandmothers all over the place, have iPads and iPhones and so forth, so they can stay in touch with their grandchildren. You talked about my dog before, and there's this myth: old dogs can't learn new tricks. I've had dogs forever. I'm watching them in the yard right now, and every dog I've ever had at any age can learn a new trick if it's in the dog's self-interest. That's when they learn new tricks.
Well,
exactly.
Oh my gosh, I can relate to this. Robin and I have done some children's books, and the other day I thought, you know what, I want to take one of the books and make it an ebook. So I couldn't figure out how the hell to do this, and so I went online and I looked for these free programs, and nothing is free. So then I found this Adobe thing, and then I downloaded it. And next
you bought it.
And right, but next thing you know, I'm like, how the hell do you do this? But you want to know something, Alan? I did it. I learned it. I was an old dog learning a new trick.
Your self-interest, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Self-interest,
Yep.
yeah. Did you write this book to get, because I'm thinking somebody who's motivated is motivated, right?
Well, that's right, because motivation's intrinsic. You cannot motivate someone else. Motivation comes from within.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. So somebody who's motivated is going to pick up the book because I guess they just want some reaffirmation. Reaffirmation, is that a good word?
Yeah, that is a good word. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So is that what you're doing? You're giving us reaffirmations?
Well, I'm doing two things, I hope. One is I'm appealing to those people who say I'm at the top of my game. How dare anyone tell me I'm not? And this guy is pointing out exactly why that's true and why I shouldn't take any crap. I also want to I just want to appeal to people who say, gee, I wonder if they're right. You know, am I getting old? Am I slowing down a step? Am I, and I want to show them it's all wrong. For example, very recently, they did a study of people who died in their 70s, and they studied the brains of these people, and they found that right up to death, they were producing more neurons. It's called neurogenesis. And so the myth that our brain deteriorates, we can't think as much, the acuity leaves, is totally wrong.
Thank you.
People continue to develop. And so, but if people, go back to your motivation point, if people don't believe that's true,
right,
then they're not going to try to apply themselves.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's absolutely true.
You also talk about the power that people have when they age, but you caution them against becoming arrogant.
Well, yes, because I call this the college professor syndrome. And the fact is that just because you're young, you don't know it all, and just because you're old, you don't know it all. Now, I don't know about you, but here's what I found. When I was younger, I thought I knew everything. As I grow older, I realized I knew practically nothing, and when that weight was lifted, I felt very good about myself. I was not under so much pressure. And so it's all about proportion, and it's all about understanding that you have a lot to offer, but you also continue to have a lot to learn.
Right, and you know how I apply that? I apply that, for example, in any business. I was going to say this business of radio. Robert and I have also worked in music, and in music is always being changed by young people. But I think everybody knows that. But in other businesses, an older executive, for example, who doesn't listen to young people's ideas, stops them. You're in the way of changes that are healthy for your business.
Yeah, you got to listen. And, look at your profession. A few weeks ago, Don Imus retires, 3 or 4 Marconis, 77, and he had a very diverse listening base. The only reason he left was that the company that owned his show went bankrupt because of bad investments elsewhere. But, this guy at 77 was still on top of his game. It doesn't matter what kind of profession you're in if you believe in yourself and if you allow yourself to listen to all kinds of people.
And people are finding their own way since they're little children. We work in the mall here, have this big old window, and I had just seen 2 moms with 3 little children, and they're each carrying their tiny lunchbox. And that little child feels so proud because they have something of their own, and they probably picked it out. And as you age, you like to try to please other people, but in the end, there's a point that you have to please yourself.
I call this, you're exactly right, I call this the oxygen mask principle, and that is, they tell you, put on your own oxygen mask first before you try to help other people. You cannot help others unless you're helping yourself. Unless you have time, you can't volunteer it. Unless you have money, you can't donate it. Unless you have information, you can't coach. And so you have to help yourself first.
Alan Weiss is our guest. His book is called Threescore and More. If you know what that means, it means you're probably old enough to remember 407 years ago.
So you pay attention.
So I know what a score is from that. Do you know, in the book, toward the end of the book, you talk about intimacy, physical intimacy, and the... I guess the thing we're supposed to believe about it is that we start to lose an interest in that. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, if you lose an interest, if you believe that, then you don't want to buy stock in Viagra, I guess.
Right.
With chocolate.
Viagra with chocolate, by the way.
There you go. When I was in my 20s, I thought, 40 was about it. You weren't going to have sex after 40. That was unheard of. And as I got older, I was very, very happy to find out how wrong I was. And so does everybody else. And I also find out that when I talk about sexual intimacy in front of my kids, they go, ew, and they leave. And I like that, too. It's a nice, sort of defense. And people have to get used to the fact that we are not only intellectual beings and emotional beings, we're sexual beings.
Yeah.
That doesn't end either.
Yeah, I think it's obvious. Do you know, we had a story this morning. Here's the Viagra and chocolate comment that Robin made. There was a story this morning out of the University of Missouri. Men who've been using Viagra get the reaction they want, but internally they don't have the desire. So they went to the doctor, and they said, well, you need an aphrodisiac because the Viagra is not an aphrodisiac. Mm-hmm. Now, to me, I can't imagine, the elevator going up, and I'm not excited that I'm going to the third floor. I can't imagine that happening. But
It's tough to say, yeah.
But they said chocolate would do it. If you had a Viagra and a chocolate, it would fix the problem. Have you ever heard that?
Is it a true story?
Yeah.
No, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I've never heard. Can I tell you a 30-second story? It's tasteful. There's no problem with it. A man late in life takes Viagra and finds out that it works for him, and he goes to his priest and he says, "Listen, Father, I got to tell you, I had sex this week with 6 women." And he says, "Oh, my son, he says, say these prayers." And the guy says, "Well, I'm not Catholic." The priest says, "Why are you in the confessional?" He says, "I'm telling everybody."
Oh my gosh!
How do you keep your ideas fresh for the variety of businesses that you have as clients?
If you're in the moment, if you're a spiritual person, I don't mean religious, I just mean spiritual, that is, you're connected to the world around you. My problem is not finding material. My problem is culling away material. They asked Michelangelo, supposedly, how he could create this beautiful piece called the David from one slab of marble. He says, "I carved away everything that didn't look like David." And I feel that's what life's about. You get rid of everything else. And so, I watch my dogs here run through an open gate. If a dog sees an open gate, the dog runs through it. The dog does not stop and do a needs analysis or a risk analysis. The dog runs through the gate.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients, look, you see an opportunity, seize it. It's not going to be fatal. Seize it. You can always make mid-course corrections. So that's where I get my ideas from all around me. And, I'm 72 and I'm still learning to do this better and better.
I love your energy. This is awesome. And maybe that's what the book will do. Maybe the book will get somebody who's actually believing the negative stuff they hear about what it means to be old, and this book will help them unbelieve stuff.
Yeah, that's right. We all have, that's a very good point. We all have a lot of unlearning we have to do, which is as important as the learning part.
Yeah, I think so too. We got plenty of time left, but I want to make sure the listeners know how to get the book. I found it on Amazon. It's called Threescore and More, Applying the Assets of Maturity, Wisdom, and Experience for Personal and Professional Success. And we've kind of covered both personal and professional. I did find it on Amazon. Do you have a website?
AlanWeiss.com, AlanWeiss.com.
With all of the self-help books and everything out there, you don't make the reading of this book seem like a self-help textbook. It's very enjoyable to read.
Well, I'm flattered you say that. People tell me that I write the way I speak, and I speak conversationally, as though I'm having a drink with somebody at a bar, not lecturing. And I find that people can relate to stories, and the stories I use in the book are all true. And the fact is that every day we have an opportunity to impress ourselves upon the world, and every day we have an opportunity to resist. There are no parades or protests or TV exposés about ageism, yet it's a very real bias in this country, and we have an opportunity to resist it, because people used to respect older people. In Japan, that's certainly the case, and right now in Japan, which has a very long lifespan, investment firms are bringing back people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s because they're the wealthiest people, and their clients want to deal with a contemporary. They don't want a 40-year-old investment advisor. They want somebody who's a peer. And the same thing in this country. These retirement funds now from the Reagan era IRA legislation, trillions of dollars, the biggest transfer of wealth in history. I don't want a 38-year-old investment advisor telling me what to do with these funds, which I must withdraw legally. And if my kids get any of the money, which I'm seriously wondering about, they're not going to want my investment advisor. They're going to want somebody who's a contemporary of theirs. See, companies have to mirror their audiences, their customers, and that's what we have to learn. And contrary to myth, the greatest discretionary spending power in this country is not among youth; it's among older people.
Oh.
Yeah, but I that's a little discriminatory. I mean, if I find a 34-year-old who really knows his stuff, why not? Why not go to that person?
Well, I'll tell you why not.
Because otherwise I'm discriminating against my own age group. Oh, no, I'm anti-discriminatory, right?
There's a new one. Well, if you're anti-discriminatory, you're fine. But look, here's my point. I'm not saying 38-year-olds are lousy at investment advice. What I am saying is this. This person does not have the perspective to talk to somebody who's 70 and a half and must withdraw these funds and understand completely their unique position in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
So then why do older men go with the younger women? Why don't they just find somebody their own age? They
not going there, not going there.
There you go. She's giving you a thumbs up, the lady that just walked by the window. Yeah,
you're not paying
she
me for
likes
this
you.
interview, not going there.
She likes your advice, Alan.
All right. That was my advice. What do you mean? All right. The fun conversation. Wow, I love these kind of interviews. Yeah, so what do you do? I mean, do you do anything physically? Do you run? Do you take vitamins? What do you do?
I work out 3 times a week with a personal trainer whom I hate and I want to destroy because they say, we're going to do 15, lifts. And I say, no, I'm doing 15 lifts. You're counting to 15, which I realize, took years of therapy school or whatever. But I work out 3 times a week. And my doctor says, I'm in great shape physically. And I feel you have to do that. I scuba dive. And, if I'm really feel energetic, I'll get in my car, I'll drive 6 miles.
Some people like...
Wait, hold on. You get in your car and you drive 6 miles?
If I really feel good, yeah. I mean, if it's an exceptional day, I'll drive 9 miles.
What?
In his car.
6 miles.
It's convertible.
All right, never mind. Robin has a question.
There are some people in the world that like to surround themselves with other people whom they believe have prestige in their own community, but they're not really true friends you can count on. What advice do you give to those people?
You know something? I write in the book about different kinds of friends. Some people have lifelong friends. I don't think that's a must, but some people do, and that's fine. But you can't just have lifelong friends. You must have other kinds of friends. And one I call transitory, which is people who come into your life for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they go again, and that's fine. And then the other kind I call lately acquired friends. And that is people who come into your life at a certain juncture, and they stay a long time because there's a reciprocity. And the thing about friends is you are who they are because that's your support system. And we've seen instances. I mean, look at Michael Vick, the quarterback, who went to jail. Very talented guy. Went to jail for dogfighting because the people he hung out with were still people from his youth who believed that was okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We have to develop friends who represent the next highest bar, who represent, a higher level to which we aspire. And I think that's the key. I
like what you just said there. Let me squeeze a phone call in before we say goodbye. Good morning. Thank you for calling and for waiting. You're on the air with Alan Weiss.
Yeah, good morning. He have a phone number?
Do you have a phone number, Alan, or just a website?
No, the number is 800-766-7935.
All right. Did you get that?
766-7935?
Yes.
Alan, say it again.
800-766-7935.
Okay, thank you so much. What is the name of your book?
All right. You want the book?
You have the book, okay.
You can have the book. Yeah, who's this? What's your name?
Sue.
Sue? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Sue. It'll be waiting for you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
Nice.
Here you go.
She asked for your phone number. You're set.
You got a phone call.
During the writing of your book, did you allow people close to you to read it, or did you wait till it was done?
I wait till it's done. I never even reread my own stuff, so I wait for it to be done. I believe, I've done, 50 some odd original books. They're in 14 languages. They're in, 6, 7 editions, so it comes to 60, 70. But what I do is I write the entire work before I let even my publisher doesn't read it until it's done. Mm-hmm. That works for me.
But the stories in there are extremely fresh, too.
Oh, yeah, they're all contemporary. I was including stories right until the last minute, and I found it, I just found out yesterday, for example, the book's already out, but the UN, the United Nations, has a mandatory retirement age of 62, and if you're a consultant who wants to work with them, even if you've been working with them in the past, if you hit 62, they have to do a special review of you to see if you're still competent. It's preposterous.
Oh, my gosh, I agree with you on that.
Just preposterous.
Fun interview. Thank you for doing this with us this morning. I'm sure you're doing this with everybody, but it was fun to have you on the air. Alan Weiss is the author. Threescore and More is the book. AlanWeiss.com is the website. I found the book on Amazon, getting really good reviews. Number 45 right now in the gerontology category. Oh, I hate that word. Don't you hate that word?
I know, me too.
Don't you hate that word? That reminds me of geritol or something.
Yeah.
Alan, thank you. That was fun.
Yeah, you two are the best. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right, we will be right back.
This is James Snyder, inviting you to join me each Sunday morning at 9:30 for Sunday Joy on 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian.